illness condition. Please consult your physician, psychiatrist, or psychotherapist for personal matters.
Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat with Dr. Foojan.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Inner Voice Show. I'm Dr. Foojan Zeine, a psychotherapist, author, and the originator of the Awareness Integration Theory. And hello to Sean, our director at the studio. This is a show about what matters most in our lives, our minds, our thoughts, feelings, actions, relationships, and our fulfillment in this beautiful journey of life. So today I will share the tip of the week. Of course, it's Valentine's. Happy Valentine's, everyone. And we'll talk a little bit about the romantic love. And I'm so excited to have the opportunity again to speak with Sister Dr. Jenna, who's the author of Meditation, Intimate Experiences with the Divine Through Contemplative Practices. She's the founder and the director of the Brahma Kumaris Meditation Museum, the host of the popular American Meditating Radio Show, and she was selected by Empower Billion Women 2020 as one of the 100 most influential leaders. And then I will get to chat with Neil Elliott, Neil Elliott, and he is the author of A Higher Road, a 7-step process to inner peace, joy, love, abundance, and prosperity. I'd love to hear from you. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel and podcast and connect with me through any of the social medias, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and they're all with Dr. Foojan Zeine. And I love to hear from you, your comments, your points, just share with me. But first, here's the tip of the week. Love is in the air. Well, the talk of the love is in the air, the symbol of romantic love, which is everywhere due to Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. It's the greatest excuse to share our love with people around us. So what is love? An experience, a beautiful internal experience that generates inside us first and then gets shared with others. From the neuroscience perspective, based on the published papers, love is a complex neurobiological phenomenon relying on trust, belief, pleasure, and reward activities within the brain and limbic process. These processes critically involve oxytocin, vasopressin, and dopamine and serotonic signaling. And they naturally rewarding or pleasurable activities are necessary for survival and aptitude motivation, usually governing beneficial biological behaviors like eating, sex, and reproduction. Yet, a broad base of the common signaling and beneficial neurobiological features exists with connection to love concept, thereby combining physiological aspects related to maternal, romantic, or sexual love. From a relational perspective, the experience, expectation, and behaviors around love varies based on the type of the relationship. In the romantic one, or marriage, love takes the central role and becomes the motivation factor for constantly negotiating to become an us in harmony. Expression of love takes on many forms and is unique to the couple as well as the various phases of the relationship. Love as an essence is expected, and when it's missing, the relationship kind of falls apart and loses the zest or the motivation to negotiate or give of ourselves as a gift to our mate. In family relationships, love is created side by side with responsibility, and there's an expectation that love should exist, and when the expression of it's not available, it becomes dramatic for everybody. In friendships, love is fostered and grows in time with good deeds and caring for each other, mutual engagements, and acceptance of each other. Love can be everywhere and anywhere we choose it to be. As a thought form, it appears as wishing goodness and kindness for others. Noticing other people's positive qualities, enhancing their strength, accepting their vulnerabilities, and voicing them. As a feeling, It's an experience of joy, happiness, closeness, sweet, sweet vulnerability, belonging, safety, and security. And as an action, shows up with words, with gifts, acts of kindness, touch, and more. And mostly, love of self. To cherish and appreciate ourselves, to be kind to ourselves, live our best and nurture our vulnerabilities, love our bodies, and take care of ourselves with well-intended eating and movement and sleeping habits. And as we learn to love ourselves and others around us, the ray of love shines through the fabric of our life and people around us. And love is the essence of fulfillment. So happy Valentine's and enjoy the love that you have and it's around you. Welcome back, everyone. I am so excited to have Sister Dr. Jenna with me. She's the author of Meditation, Intimate Experiences with the Divine Through Contemplative Practices. As a trusted spiritual mentor to people all over the world, she works to bridge divides in societies and build relationships between global influencers. She's the founder and the director of the Brahma Kumaris Meditation Museum and the host of the popular American Meditating radio show at americanmeditating.org, and the recipient of the President's Lifetime National Community Service Award. Sister Dr. Jenna is also a member of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle and was selected by Empower Billion Women 2020 as one of the 100 most influential leaders of 2015. It is such a joy to have you with me.
Best part is you're one of my BFFs. So,
well, I think
hello,
everybody
Foojan Zeine.
by now knows that I love you so much. You are actually the reason I started this show, and you were my first guest when we started. I came to your show because of my book, and I remember when I was talking to you, all I did was out of this like profound amount of love that I had experienced, I kept tearing up and kind of like crying. And at the beginning, when I kept seeing you, I was like, that's all I did. I just saw you and tears of like joy and love would show up. So that's who you are in your essence. So thank you for spending the time to be with me again.
But also it's about the soul connection. Many of us might not remember, or do we have maybe enough understanding that the soul never dies, no? And sometimes when we reconnect with each other, it could be of a long, long time ago. And when we see each other, it's like, oh my God, I've missed you. Yeah. And that whole continuation of the relationship, is birthed and it just continues in a way. And I love that between us. We have that special link.
Yes.
So can you believe we've gotten another book out there in the world on meditation?
Yes, I remember when I came to Brahma Kumaris, one of the most amazing experience I had was as I sat very quickly. It was almost like I just went in very deep and just solid for, I think probably about 15, 20 minutes. And I came out and it was this, and you told me, you said, when you meditate in a particular place, you create that space for yourself in that environment where it calls you and really pulls you pulls you in immediately. And there's the structure mattered. And that's why you had created, the Brahma Kumaris in Washington, 2 different centers. Your book on meditation, it has your words, your journey, and many, many, many other authors' journey in there. So can you share with us what brought you to want to bring all of these different stories together?
Thanks for asking. It's a really interesting story. Ariel from Sacred Stories Publishing had approached me over a year ago about a book on meditation. And I flatly just said I had no interest. There is no way I'm going to spend time on a book on meditation, especially when there's so many books out there on meditation. And I don't think you can really dive deep into meditation just reading books. I think it's really it's a journey, it's a process that you experiment with your ongoing relationships, with your connections with people. So she came back And she asked me again to please reconsider. She felt that a book is not just on meditation, but it's on the mystical experiences that you've had with the divine and how those mystical experiences changed your life. And that I could invite as many of my friends on the journey with me to co-author along with the book. I'm pretty sure I sent you an invitation to join me on this book, but I think you missed it. But yeah, so there are like 37 co-authors with me.
Yeah, I didn't miss it. I actually saw it. I contemplated. There's a part that I'm struggling. And you always tell me you have this weird spiritual stuff, which mine is like an on-demand thing. And then when I was trying to write this thing, and I kept saying, but I don't do this every day. So it's like, I don't know. And then by the time I was contemplating with myself, the deadline passed. So I think mine was like, am I just going to be a fraud if I just say I'm meditating? Because I don't, but I do have spiritual experiences as they show up. And that was the reason I didn't catch on. So hopefully I get this clear with myself. So the next book I'll be joining you.
Appreciate your authenticity. I didn't know that. So thank you about that. You know, so far the stories have all been so compelling that when we did our book launch, which was on 02/02/2022, February 2nd, and there are actually 222 pages in the book. I mean, there's something so mystical about it. But when we did our book launch, Foojan Zeine, it was just this incredible energy. And everybody who watched it was like, what is this that's coming over me? And the other co-authors that were with me for the launch, they texted me back to say, I don't know what's going on. Something's buzzing. It's like, I'm feeling the light. I'm in the light. I'm back in my days when I was called to be of greatest service. But one of the most common threads in the book is how everyone was led to serving, to giving, to being bigger than they were before their mystical experience. So it was just been a really delight. And it's been number one in not only mysticism in that category, New Age, but new releases. And it's doing pretty well, I heard.
Beautiful. You share that meditation is this journey, intimate journey of coming home to the essential part of you that is beyond your titles, labels, roles, and what society and your environment distracts you from. It gives you a chance to listen to those deeper innermost thoughts that are directly connected to the purity and the presence of divine. And it's about building and forming a deeper experience of sacred love, which melts away all that is impure. And what is not sacred is hidden in the dark. So it illuminates love through you. And when anyone comes into your presence, they feel this sacredness and feels safe. And you definitely illuminate that.
Yeah. So I think that we don't have enough examples to remind us of the sacredness of the soul. And I think I can only tell you my teachings of Raj Yoga meditation that's taught in the Brahma Kumaris community, which is predominantly female-led. You can't help but, find that this intimacy between your own spirit and your internal journey, that walking with God on this journey within is a very, very private affair. And there's something very deeply, profoundly mystical and transformative in it that not even the ego is aware of the amount of changes that are going on inside of you. And so when you can identify how much you're changing is when you find yourself in a situation that you've been in before, but somehow you're responding to the situation differently than you used to. And you can feel within yourself, you're just not as flustered as you used to be. And there's a sense of being anchored in something that's much bigger than what you can see with your physical senses. So if I were to write down the benefits of a practice of meditation, the list would be endless. And you could turn the ocean into ink and the earth into paper. You still couldn't stop writing the benefits of meditation because it's that profound.
You speak not only you have the contemplation of all of the other writers and experiences, but you also share different types of meditation, because one meditation might not work for everyone. You share about Raja Yoga, which you practice, but you also shared about guided meditation, sound meditation, mantra meditation, walking meditation, which that I can do, contemplative prayers, and meditative readings. And I remember when I came with you to the Brahma Kumara Center to India, all of those were still a part of it. So although there was the lectures and the guidance of Raja Yoga, but I remember many of the meditation being the guided meditation, or Dr. Ivy was there with the sound meditation and the mantras. And so there's so many different ways of being able to tune in for people who one might work better than the other. Can you share a little bit about that?
I think it's a relationship that you establish. Being faithful in one relationship anchors you, but it doesn't mean that you can't love, millions of people outside of that. And what I'm trying to say is, when you find your meditation that connects, you can feel it. I mean, you can feel it. It's doing something for you. Then it's fine. Go deeper in understanding the facets of it and learn it and master it as best as you can. But it doesn't mean that you close your eyes or you turn your back on learning from everyone else and everything else around you. So I am a Brahma Kumaris, and I love sitting with my friends who are reading the Quran and are doing prayer, and I join them. And I love being in a Buddhist temple with my friends who are, reciting Nam Myo Ho Renge Kyo, and I go into it and I can feel the benefit of it. But in my heart and in my wiring, in terms of where I grab the knowledge to keep me focused and to keep me settled, is in my teachings of the Brahma Kumaris. So what I love about the book is that it shows you that you can anchor yourself in one thing, but it doesn't mean you turn your back on everything. Now, the difference of this, what I'm saying, is sometimes people wish to not anchor themselves in one thing because they don't want to be trapped to an organization, a company, a community. They want to belong to all things, but there's no foundation. You're not connected to the root or the seed. And that's why it is imperative for everyone out there who's practicing any sort of a spiritual tradition, anchor yourself somewhere where you feel safe and you feel whole, but embrace everyone else. And you saw that on the mountaintop with a variety of individuals and people doing their thing, but, moving as gracefully as they can. And in answering of your question, we're all on a journey on our own. We're all souls on very specific journeys with a very specific role and part to play, which means I will interpret the unfolding of life based on my part and my specific role. And if I come into a situation that I'm struggling, or it's difficult, or I'm confused, well, that's a part of the journey, but it doesn't mean it has to stay the journey. So I go inwards and I turn my attention to the source, to the divine. And I'll ask God, what does love want me to do? I'm stuck here. And just with that one simple question, He will send a response and will empower you to do what's going to be beneficial for your journey. And so I think if everybody understands the power of meditation, they would not leave it alone.
I know that you have gone through these past years, not only, working in your own growth and working in expanding the growth of others, handling two centers, handling illnesses, handling, other people's illnesses. And you've had to really juggle a lot while you have been a teacher, a mentor to the world. How has meditation in your world supported you in passing through all the ups and downs, which is a lot of people go. Many people think that, oh, I don't have time for meditation, or meditation is just for people with luxury of doing nothing. And I have to be hyper vigilant all the time about doing things, and I just can't sit. Or when they sit, there's so much shows up for them, which is like, they up like, no, 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 I can't do that. And even when they are reaching to connect, they're reaching to connect out of like desperation, like do something. I hear people with illnesses or other people illnesses is a demand of do something, and when it's not showing up, or at the time, then it's like, well, I'm mad, I'm angry, obviously it didn't work, what's the point of me doing? And I know that you've gone through so much these past year. Can you share how your path and meditation has supported you through all the ups and downs?
Well, like a mother, let's say she has 5 kids, and each kid is quite naughty, but she has love for them, and she has no other choice. It's her creation. She knows that there's benefit in having all these children and whatever it has to do for her. And she does what's needed. And whatever are the ups and downs that she goes through, it's okay. It's worth every bit of trial and tribulation and blood, sweat, and tears. Because at the long run, she knows that there's going to be love at the end to meet her. So I think for me, the foundation is where I'd like to bring everyone's attention. If you construct a building without a strong foundation, it will crumble. In Florida, actually, just a year or two ago, there was a building that just crumbled because the foundation was cracking. So when the unfolding of things occur, whether it's through relationship, whether it's through health, whether it's through your own mind, going against you. If you've built a strong foundation of knowing who you really are, besides your 5 senses and beside the way your body looks and is shaped and the color of the skin, if you're more anchored in your thinking and belief system that the soul is the infinite, imperishable, immortal and eternal living light energy, then no matter what's happening outside of you, it can't be more powerful than the spirit. So because I've been on a very consistent, disciplined journey, which you know of my timetable and how we roll in a day, little by little, the power was being built, was going in, the power was accumulating, it was shaping the personality of the soul. There are days that I feel overwhelmed, and when I get overwhelmed, it's generally this narrative that's happening in my head that I wish I had more power to deal with all of this. So I don't usually blame the situation for the way that I'm feeling, but I'll be like, you have enough power to deal with this. Where is it? And that's where I felt like I've had to keep going back to being responsible in amplifying the spiritual power that I possess. But the spiritual power that you all possess is within you. And until you start to focus your attention behind your eyes and really pull that power from out of you, you will continue to be influenced by the world of the 5 senses and taken in a million different directions. Who's not playing the role of like a mother with 5 kids? Remember the story, old Mother Hubbard lived in a shoe. She had so many kids. She had nothing. She didn't know what to do. Who told her to go have 20, 30 kids in the first place? But that's not the point. The point is you've got job, work, traffic, health, money, bills, mortgage. If you do it like that, you could just scream. But how about this? I've got me. I've got power. I'm immortal. I'm a child of God. There's a gift that I have. I'm born with a particular part and role to play. Now let's do it. Let's see what it is that needs to come out of me. So I would advise all of your beautiful audience to really contemplate becoming very consistent in their connection with themselves, not to put themselves aside, but to be consistent in anchoring themselves into a relationship with the divine and make that an unbreakable link.
You also have wonderful, wonderful people who have shared One of them, which I truly love her work, is Jean Houston.
Mm.
And so many more. I just kept reading.
In Jean's article, she had her little puppy, you know, that she learned everything from. And it's one of the most endearing stories in the book. And another one was the way Reverend Sylvia Sumter from Unity of Washington, D.C., remembered the light. She had all these avatars, Krishna, Buddha, Jesus, all of these souls, and she could feel them around her, and they were all light. But there was another light that was stronger than all of them. And she said, I kept wanting to turn to that light, but I just couldn't. It was so bright, I just couldn't. But then all of the other light beings, like the Christ soul, the Jesus soul, the Buddha soul, they says, don't worry, we're here. And you too are a light. And so all of these stories that are in the book, there was one with Emily Hine, who completely changed her life from being an extremely successful consultant for Microsoft and techie to changing the world and doing work and advocacy for world peace after 9/11. And that light came into her. And when she had to speak at Congress to submit a Department of Peace bill, she was so scared, but she remembered that experience. And in the experience, it told her you were bigger than the Capitol. And so when she walked in to speak to all the members of Congress and Senate about this bill, she didn't feel the intimidation that she felt before. So the stories in the book, Foojanji, has all of this in it, that it says you might be up for a mystical experience and you don't even know it. You might have even had one, but you were so busy in the world of sound that you didn't even give it any credence. And so now the drama and the destiny of life is saying, turn inwards, recognize the vast universe behind your eyes, and live from that place.
I know that the voice inside myself has turned to be very loving. I think for the first time in my life, I'm experiencing with like the love of my body, which I really had not done before. And it's such a sweet love. A lot of times with my body, it was more like, you know, shall not eat this, and why are you doing this? And it was like punitive. And I keep hearing now this kind of like, oh, sweet, it's okay. You know, this compassion that has shown up for my body, which is really interesting, that the tonality of that voice is very different in the essence of love and compassion and sweetness that is started to build inside. And it shows up in different times. But I still got to do the ritual.
But that's so good to hear. No, that's so good to hear, because a lot of us are into body shaming, or we think we have to be a size 6 or 7 to be recognized as looking good or beautiful, or the color of the skin. But when we are soul aware and soul conscious, the interpretation, the understanding, the wisdom, and the truth within that awareness of being soul conscious, soul aware says, this is the body that I'm gifted with.
Yes.
And then you start to serve that body with reverence because you love it. And in your serving the body with reverence, it also sometimes turns around and does wonderful things for you, like become really healthy, or it starts to put muscles where it's supposed to be, or maybe it starts to remove certain fats and put them where they really belong, you know? So it just depends. It's just, you must love my mother. I always have a story about her because she's been such an interesting teacher for me. Growing up, I always watched her, you know, combing her hair. She's an African Jamaican woman. She's combing her hair. Her hair is only right here. You know, she's a Black woman and she's trying to pretend like she's somewhere else in time, combing her hair. And she'd tell me, my hair is blonde, you know, Jen. And I'm like, no, it's not. And she'd be doing that. And I used to see her go to the beach and sunbathe like she was some Caucasian with blonde hair. Like, oh, doesn't that woman know that she dark than night? What is wrong with her? And then as I matured, I realized this is something I think that her soul was grappling with, was that the soul was in another body, in another race, and the soul is still attached to that narrative. And now here she is in this African body with definitely not long blonde hair. And she doesn't like the body. So what I hear from my mother all the time, this hurts, this aches, this is bad, this is hurting, I need to do this. And she's always saying that she's sick. You take her to the hospital 100 times for the year. Nothing is wrong with my mom. So there's something in her spirit that is just stuck somewhere. But now with her dementia being so advanced, that woman don't care if she's in or out of her body. She's so happy. And she's just a delight to have around, for the exception of her breaking into the kitchen and eating everything in the fridge.
I keep thinking about the phrase, if you don't mind, it doesn't matter.
I will remember that when I go downstairs and see her breaking into the fridge.
Because I remember when my mom was also going through the dementia and Alzheimer's, a lot of the things that she kind of got caught before, it just didn't matter. She turned out to be this beautiful child of, like a 6-month-old who was just experiencing joy. And, she was living in the moment, literally in the moment at every point. Sister Dr. Jenna, everyone, the author of Meditation Intimate Experiences with the Divine Through Contemplative Practices. Sister Jenna, any completing beautiful jewel that you have as we complete our conversation?
It's time for you to take care of yourself. It's time for you to listen. It's time for you to value the deep silence that's already within you, but wants more of your attention. It's time for you to remember God more so that you can stay true to yourself and to others around you. It's time for you to keep practicing what does love want you to do so that you can feel your connection to the divine. And I think if we all do that, there'll be world peace.
Yes, I do agree. It starts with us. So everyone, please go get the book, Meditation, Intimate Experiences with the Divine Through Contemplative Practices by Sister Dr. Jenna and other wonderful, wonderful beings, practitioners, beings, and they share their life with you. It is such a joy to be with you and see you, and thank you. Thank you for coming, and I look forward to more of your books.
Thank you. And all the best for you too, Foojanji. You're doing so much good out there, and our unlimited pure feelings and blessings are always with you and your team and everything that you continue to envision to leave behind and make the world better than you entered into it.
Thank you. Don't go anywhere, everyone. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Dr. Foojan Zeine, and I am excited to have the Neil Elliott with us, and he is the author of A Higher Road, a 7-step process to inner peace, joy, love, abundance, and prosperity. Welcome to our show, Neil.
Oh, thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here.
You have had an amazing journey. You've gone, you have shared your life story in a sense in this book, and you have also shared a lot of what you've learned from other people in the path of stretching their consciousness, opening their consciousness, and receiving a lot of amazing information and how to put that into everyday life. So before we go through the 7 steps, can you share with our audience and our listeners in what got you into opening up, going internally, and then wanting to share it with the world?
Yeah, so I grew up and have a professional engineering degree and an MBA and got into that corporate world. And I've been doing that for over 30 years. But, through the 90s, so I was born in 1960, and through the 90s, I thought I'd like to have a more positive experience with people, more open to different varying ideas and stuff like that, and very grounded in science. But, I wanted to do that. So I picked up a bunch of spiritual books and stuff like that and read them, and they're books that everybody will know. And I worked, trying to have this more positive attitude and positive language. And all of those processes, all really great and all by really good authors. And I just couldn't make them stick. And then in 2002, I went into consulting and life became about work. And over that period from 2002 to 2015, I slowly fell into this deep and despondent depression. And, we're all great actors in our environment. We have this facade we put on and we project what we like to our clients and our family and our friends. So no one knew I was in that state. But I got to this place where, I was asking myself questions about, well, like, what's the purpose of life? I'm working hard. I'm miserable inside. I had great vacations. My wife and I, she's from Germany, and we'd go to Europe and we'd have these wonderful vacations and stuff. And it was fun while I was doing that. But in reality, internally, I was a mess. And so I picked up some new books and new spiritual books and started reading them and following those processes. And again, I couldn't fundamentally shift how I thought. And I couldn't get over this depression. And I was really trying to get over this depression. And so I decided to sit down and plan out a suicide. So I sat down and I crafted a suicide note and wanted to make sure my family was going to be okay and my wife would be financially okay, say goodbye to everybody without them knowing what I was going to do. And about a week prior to that, some information had come to me that promised to liberate my thinking if I read it and followed it. And I thought, I was at this place of, okay, I'm going to commit suicide in 3 months. And then being the engineer and project manager, I thought, okay, well, this information says it could. And there was this little nagging doubt that, committing suicide would be a great idea. And so I thought, okay, I'll push that out. I'll read this material and give it a chance. And, that's what embarked me really on this awakening and spiritual journey that I've been on ever since. I woke up a year later full of just love and peace and joy and, a new verve for life, so to speak. And I wanted to share that with everybody and shout it from the rooftops. And I thought, oh, okay, I'm going to be looked at like a nutcase. So it took me a couple of years, and I figured out the best way to do that is to share my story, write a book, and put the exact process I followed and the scientific information that I utilized that started to open my mind and my consciousness to a new way of thinking, and then the rest of the process. And so that's the book.
Beautiful. Yes, as I was going over your book, I saw that there's this process that there's about listening and allowing messages to come for you. So part of what I wanted you to share with people is sometimes when you're really into that depression and the a conversation that shows up from inside as you sit, a lot of negativity, like the message is all the negativity that shows up. And that is different when you say, okay, there's a message that comes with it. Or in your book, you talk about just sit down and listen and then allow, when you're called to write a letter for yourself, you write that. And then it seems like there's a different kind of an experience of an internal dialogue that shows up, right? It's like it's a different voice. It has a different message. It has a different, one goes all the way to negativity and say, oh, you ought to kill yourself. What's the point? And then another one brings you light and love that just cherishes you. Can you share a little bit between the two and your distinction between the two and how the experience of the two are different?
Oh, that's a great question. And it didn't happen quickly and slowly for me. So and I share this in my book. I can look back now and go, the scientific books that I read was really a process to open me up to think about consciousness in a different way and accept new information. And so I had to go through this process whereby I changed my concept of consciousness. I used to think everything I thought was in my brain. I had learned it, experienced it, been exposed to it. And as I went through this process in these scientific books, they got me to a point where I understood consciousness was not only in my brain, but throughout my body and all around me. And I now see thoughts as this stream that goes by my awareness. And we view that stream and we pick a thought out of that stream. We do this in a nanosecond. We pick a thought out if we like it, and it could be a positive thought, a loving thought, a kind thought. It could be a negative thought, anger and hate, whatever. But if it's consistent with our programmed thinking that we have adopted over a lifetime from babyhood to adulthood, we will take it and we will keep it and we'll think about it. And that is a choice. And the one thing that was fundamental for me to actually understand at a level that I could believe was that everything that I thought is just a belief. And by doing that, when you get to that learning and that understanding of that, you can then start to make choices around things. So I followed this process, that essentially shaped and opened me up to thinking about consciousness in a different way, and that things that were coming into me. And then there's this blueprint information, I call it, that I share with people that took me through a process that, again, uses scientific things that we know in science today, that builds this understanding and believability about this gap that will be bridged between spirituality and science. And when you start this process, you'll learn how to meditate, and you go into this meditation. You don't hear anything for a while. But what you're doing is you're learning new information that's impressed in new brain cells at the top of your brain. And as you do that, you begin to feel an opening at the top of your head. And, started out for me at about a size of a dime, didn't know what it was. But as that opening grew and expanded, I knew that's the process that was going on. Those new brain cells with that new knowledge that you gain operates at a higher frequency of consciousness vibration. And when that happens, you actually start to feel a inflow of spiritual energy into your head. And eventually it will fill your whole head, go into different parts of your body, maybe down one side, up another. And so it became the first thing for me was it became an experience of feeling. And it was something that I actually felt and could understand given the process that I share in A Higher Road. But, and then what happened is like right now, you could put a bowl over my head that goes down almost to the bottom of my ears, and that opening is the entire top of my head. And today so it's been 4 years now since I began this process. And today I have constant and mutual reciprocation of communication with our creator, with the source of our being, whether you call it God, Allah, Yahweh, the Tao, whatever you want to call it. And that then comes to me sometimes through inspiration, or it will come and it will be a feeling or a thought that comes into my mind, and it's imprinted in the mind. It's almost like you're thinking to yourself, but it is totally based in love, and it's direction, and it's clear. And, sometimes the messages that I receive are more, less subtle than other times. But that when you follow this process and you have these experiences, at some point you're building your faith and your understanding. And then at some point, that what you know is true. And then when you receive messages, it's entirely different than what I thought my inner voice was before. My inner voice before was exactly as you said. Sometimes they're negative messages. These messages that I receive now are all based in love, 100% love, and 100% to the goodness of not only myself, but everybody around me.
Thank you for sharing that. You talk about stretching your consciousness and kind of having the ability to experience that type of love, like a nirvana type of a love, being possible for every human being in their lifetime. And then you shared about the step 2, which is the truth and unveiling the truth in a sense. And you referred to letters, to read the letters. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So the blueprint document, which I don't share the name of and stuff, is because of how it came to me. It's marketed in a way which I would have run from, and I would think most people would run from, given how it's presented. And so what I've crafted a higher road so that you go through the same process I did of opening up your mind to be able to get to a point where you can accept this material and read it and explore it for yourself, and then make your own decision. But when you go through this material, again, based in science, and so because it's so believable and rational from a scientific perspective in what we know in science today, then when these spiritual truths are shared with you through this process, they become something that you can understand and make this leap across this gap to understand this spirituality and science. And the thing that, everything that we think is every thought has its own vibrational frequency and consciousness. And we think with electrical impulses in our brain, and we feel with magnetic impulses in our nervous system. And when you understand the mechanisms of creation, why we're here, the purpose that we have, and we take the frame of reference off of a single lifetime and look at this more as a evolutionary process for the soul. And everybody's soul is perfect, and it comes from unconditional love, and it returns to unconditional love. But it comes here to have an experience on earth, to feel and go through these processes of creation. And we do this unknowingly and unwittingly by what we think and what we feel. And we attract to ourselves things that are like events from our thoughts and our feelings. And we create these blueprints. And so, for example, this blueprint material shares what was before the Big Bang, the impetus for the Big Bang, what happened at the time of the Big Bang, and how and why creation came into being, and how material form came into being. And it leverages what we know in science to explain to us exactly how we create every event and every experience that comes into our life. And so we create these blueprints. Every thought has its own vibrational frequency and consciousness. So it's a movement in consciousness, and consciousness in movement. And we magnetize to that thought with our feelings, these blueprints of future events through our expectations, our purpose, and our feelings. And a like experience or event will be manifested for us in days, weeks, months, or years in the future, as soon as it attracts enough magnetic energy and magnetizes that to us. And I use in a higher road an example of how I unwittingly, unknowingly, and ignorantly manifested a $60,000 Lexus hardtop convertible car into my life. With a $100 lottery ticket, didn't even know it was in the lottery. And, but I explain exactly how I did that, what I did every day for a year, and then this car showing up in my life. Later in the book, I describe these mechanisms of creation and what really was going on as I was going through this process of unknowingly and unwittingly taking this process and using it to manifest this in my life. And that's just a concrete example of something positive. You know, we'd consider that positive coming into our life, you know, or winning a $60,000 car, but we do this with everything. And so when we look at a soul's journey, it's only through lessons of suffering does the journeying soul gain self-knowledge to retain individuality after discarding the ego. And our process is to have the lessons that we learn from lifetime to lifetime until we wake up and we start to go through this process in whatever pattern and path that we find.
Beautiful. So, because we don't have a lot of time, I just wanted to share with people that the step 3 is reflection and allowing to receive and write letters for yourselves. And you share about nature of creative power is love, and it's directing the works of the universal intelligence and creative power. And then there's a rhythm and there's a law and order in everything. And then you share about cleansing the ego drives and the rejections, and then rebuilding your consciousness with the aspirations and the divine consciousness. And you suggest meditating daily and then repeating the structure. In order to wrap up our conversation, is there anything that you could say as a jewel in what is it that you want to share with people for them not only to hold in their heart and go through the practice and know what it is that they can receive in the book? There's one excerpt, I know that we don't have time, but I really want to read this from your book, which says, I realized on ever higher and higher levels of spiritual exhalation that the creative power exhibited intelligence, purposefulness, and loving concern for all living things. I realized that life was not something nebulous or amorphous, but an intelligent, loving, creative power, which I could actually feel within myself as a tremendously heightened state of being, perception, radiance, ecstasy, joy, and love. I knew myself to be one with it, filled with it, and I was one with everything around me and one with the sky and the stars. And that's truly a profound experience. And for people, when you read this, you go through a lot of not only Neil's experience, but if some of you have had any type of experience, you can really relate to different parts of your experience. In 1 minute, is there anything that you want to share to complete this conversation?
I think that the one thing that I would like everybody to know is that no matter where you are in life, whether you're ill or happy, sick or, ill or happy, unhappy, whether you live in a mansion or live on the street, you can actually transform your life as soon as you understand how and why creation came into being, and have a process to do that. And that's what I've shared in my book is my process that I went through. And I quite frankly believe that it can work for everybody if you're willing to read it and consider it for yourself. I'm hoping to help people. I'm hoping to help change the consciousness of the world, one person at a time.
D. Neil Elliott, everyone. Please get the book, A Higher Road, a 7-step process to inner peace, joy, love, abundance, and prosperity. Thank you so much for being with us today, Neil.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to be here and have this conversation with you.
And for all of you who are out there, create an amazing life for yourself and everyone around you. And until next week, bye-bye.
The